So, good afternoon and welcome to this new appointment of the Alumni Talks organized within the frame of the Arqus European Alliance. My name is Stefania and I work at the University of Padova. What is Arqus? Arqus is an alliance that brings together the University of Braga, Granada, Graz, Leipzig, Wrocław, Lyon 1, Vilnius, Maynooth in Ireland, and Vilnius, and of course Padova. The main goal of the Alliance is to promote the mobility of students, staff and academic members, the transfer and the sharing of the knowledge, and the building for a European community and university. Within Arqus, you can find a lot of events, activities, opportunities as podcast, workshop, call for ideas, call for co-design projects for students, summer schools, winter schools dedicated to several subjects. Among the activities organized by Arqus, there are also the Alumni Talks, where former students of the university talk about their experiences in entering the world of employment. So how they succeeded and maybe how they failed sometimes. So today we host Giorgio Duso, and I have to thank Alumni Association of the University of Padova for the precious cooperation and collaboration, and that's it. So I don't want to waste more time. If you need more information about Arqus, you can visit the website. I will leave the link in the chat, and then I will leave the floor to Giorgio. I just remind you that if you have any question, you can write, your questions in the chat, and then at the end of the talk, we can have a Q&A session with Giorgio replying to all your questions. So, Giorgio, welcome here, and I leave the floor to you for your introduction and your speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefania. While you were talking, I wish I would have been in the same situation some years ago. This series of initiatives from Arqus is a kick-ass initiative. I really think that is super valuable for each of us in that specific stage of our life, of our student life, and for young professional. So I'm welcoming this initiative a lot, and I hope that I will leave a mark with you guys. Today, I have a little bit more of a, let's say, engaging, I hope, presentation for you, and hopefully I will be also good enough for presenting some of my experience to you. I'm sharing my screen, I hope, and then I guess I will see you saying not, you're not in case, but I guess everybody's seeing that. All right. So yeah, a quick comment about me and why I'm here today. As part of the Alumni Association myself, I strive for making sure that my experience at the University of Padova and my experience as a student doesn't go wasted in only a workplace, but also going back towards my alma mater, that in that case is University of Padova, knowing that even if you are very far away, you don't have to be there, but you can actually just make an impact digitally. And that's why we are here today. Be sure that your years at university are not getting wasted and you're just, pass the mark and that's it. But really making sure that you network with your previous colleagues from university is also a very good way to make memories more vivid. And talking about memories, in my presentation, I will just go through what was my experience and what has been my approach to the video game industry. So, well, without further ado, I think we can just kick it. So my presentation here today is a little bit to inspire you that there is no game over. This is a little bit of a catchy title that we wanted to give because at the end represents a little bit of the success and failure rate that many of you might have already experienced or are just experiencing, and people that came before you, they experienced the same. And this is indeed just a friendly reminder that that's still doing. So the idea that we want to make sure of this small talk is to give you a little bit of understanding of what I'm expecting from you and your question and what I most likely, hopefully, going to answer, and also what I'm giving to you today. So the idea is we have somebody talking. That's me today. I'm gonna briefly talk about my initial job experience, how I felt, what were the roadblockers at the beginning, a sort of growth and learning that I applied myself because of the experiences that I was actually getting through. And the most important thing that I didn't know back then when I started to work in is really find yourself since the very day zero of your job search or your day after university, a purpose of yourself as a after student life. And this, of course, is an evolution. And on the other side, what I'm expecting from you is indeed to hear a bunch of questions. Could be very silly, of course. We have time for that too. But also a feedback from your from my presentation. It will be very, very appreciated to see if I engaged you enough. I made you comfortable to asking question, and maybe I made some points that you will take with you today. The point is very straightforward at the beginning. It's something that I live by today, and I think it's something that made my life very way better while approaching my career. I do work in the video game industry. I do work for Ubisoft, and it's one of the biggest publisher of video games and developer in the world. I do love video games. So, well, the slide title is Identify Your Passion and Strengths. So you might ask yourself, am I a coder? Am I don't know, a game designer? Am I an artist? No, I'm not. I graduated in 2000, I don't remember, no, joking, 2018, at University of Padua in business administration, so financial accounting. So how come you're there? Well, I identified that my passions were actually about video games, and I wanted to apply it in a context, in a working context that would make this passion result, let's say, fit very nice. And yeah, basically that's about it. The quickest thing that you could find sometimes in some, I don't know, books or some LinkedIn posts or some influencers, it will be that to find the perfect job, you might consider your passions, your skills, and what is available on the market. Well, from my experience, you cannot really control the market demand. So today, everybody is crazy about artificial intelligence. So you might say, okay, why I cannot be part of artificial intelligence work group right now? Well, because you might have started 5 years ago, or you can start now, and then in 5 years being proficient in that, but then there will be a new trend coming up. So can you really control that? Not really, unless it is your passion. And this exemplifies that why at the end, the only thing that you can really work on a daily basis with purpose is to harness your passion and skills. In this way, you can always be sure to be living by your code, by staying true by yourself, and allows you to, wake up and then on a Monday morning finding motivation to just start the week, right? So at the end, with this really, really nice rainbow color, my idea is that forget about the market demand, just try to understand what is your true passion beside studying, Netflix, food, and travel, and really work on that to make sure that you can find a suitable first job experience. To make sure that I hit the point is not just by myself that I say these things, but it is something you can try to find in the literature as well. Here I am quoting an article that I found from the Harvard Business Review. It is about indeed pretty strong statement. So we should always strive to find our next job, our next opportunity into something we really like, because it just makes things more interesting. Maybe less successful, but then way more interesting. And such a success will be when down the road you find yourself and thinking like, oh yeah, that was the right thing to do. It was way fun. And then that's what matters at the end. To make it more tangible, I have a picture of myself. That's me in 2017, and literally me in 2017. I found myself into a land of, let's say, job opportunities, potential job opportunities. But then I was just applying for jobs because, right? Because, well, that's what you do after you finish university, right? You apply for a job. and then you are so pumped that you are finding yourself into this weird time between graduating, and then you want to start your internship. You have your passion, but they teach you that basically you have to start becoming an adult. So I was still playing a lot. I do play a lot nowadays, but at the beginning I had to leave some of my passions behind because I don't know, first experiences, you try to live the life by adults, creating purpose, right? And I found out that at the end, well, I was kind of wrong, because what at the end really drive my passion to find the job that I have today, and it gave a little bit my career different twist, is actually my passion. So one thing to achieve this consistently in a way that you're not going crazy, and then people will ask you what you want to do, and then you have to build a plan. And there is expectation and reality. As you are in that stage as a young professional, you might think like, okay, I graduate, I get an intern, and then I immediately become the CEO of the company, right? Because I mean, I'm so good, I'm so cool. Who doesn't love me that? At the end, the reality is way more difficult, and you might live through it. That of course, it's a little bit more um, twisted and goes up and downs, and then it goes back and forward and steps one process. So what you can really achieve today is to set clear goals that brings you there. And of course, you might think like, who can help me with that? Well, there are a few elements that can help. Of course, being here today is one of them. Trying to understand from people not too far away in the career how they got to the career they wanted. But it could also be from many other sources. Today, we have way more access to informations in terms of books, or the same university is offering way more contact with the workforce, people that actually are already there that can tell you maybe where to go, or maybe not where to go, and plan it. Just try it. And then in that case, you can do if it succeeds or not, and then coming back or going forward or going left or going right. But at the end, you can see this in a understandable way for yourself that you're not gonna crazy. So yeah, I guess this is one of the three steps. The second one will be the network and gain experience, because you will see that at the end they are all related to each other. You will see that the industry that you want to work on is not really big after all. I had this when I started a little bit my own growth of my career in the video game industry. Attending some industry events is key. Talking to people is key. We have to really understand that regardless of the digitalization of the world, the communication human to human is really important when you really want to understand how things are going. And at the end, everything is down to a very initial point that you have to have a mentor. You might not find now one mentor, but you will find it in one day that you are inspired by this guy. You are thinking like, this guy can give you a lot that you don't have yet. And this could be from any kind of group that you have. It could be a friend of yours. It could be an ex-professor of yours. It could be a professional that you met at a fair. You can be somebody on LinkedIn that you just, very inspired by his causes that he's fighting for, or his work. And you might find out that people are really impressed when they are actually asked to ask for advices, because it means that somebody somehow wants to take their steps, or they are interested in what they achieved. And at the same time, they most of the time humans tend to be really kind to each other human, and therefore they will gladly give you all the advices whenever they find the time. And of course, this is part of the last point, that is about getting feedback. You don't know if you're right if you don't ask anybody. So you have to embrace this mentality that you have to ask people around. I might do the right thing in your opinion. This is what you want to achieve. What do you think? And of course, this has to be really, really targeted to actually what you want to insist later on in your career. Something you will discover in the workplace, that all the feedback rounds, or let's say Alfear compensation review, all these big words in terms of your impact in the workplace is actually by feedback established. So if you are good in communicating with your colleague, with your manager, with the people in your industry, then at the end is actually just going to be way better and way easier for you to work yourself up with the career you wanted. Of course, here I also attached a small reading that you can find easily on the web. And indeed, it's about asking feedback, and that can be applied transversally to any job title, job profession, seniority, but it's easier to start early rather than later, as many things. And I don't think I have that many points, but there are some motivational framework here. You can find so many in the web, but at the end, it's just to leave you with a last point, is that there is no real coded way to get one point in the future. It's just a way to embrace the chaos, adapt to what is the current circumstances, and then overcome that problem, that person, that situation in your life. It doesn't really stay for that long that you cannot actually find a way around it. So the way that is indeed the best way is to invent your next path, but just be true to your code. Everything that is related to that, it will make you anyway find your motivation on a Monday morning to just saying, yes, I'm going to do that because that's what I want to do. And that's about it. I'm here leaving the my QR code, links to the LinkedIn page. I'm I haven't talked about myself that much because I don't think I'm in any position. I just wanted to tell you that I found inspired myself by a lot of people that I'm working with every day, and also people that I started to interact because of, let's say, projects that went well, projects that went bad. Sometimes it's just you have to try to understand how you really work in a certain environment or a certain group of people. And the only thing that I actually want to thank you is if you can provide feedback when you're asking questions. Is like, oh, thank you, it was insightful, it was a nice touch, it was including some nice quotes, or yeah, maybe if you don't have anything to say, just say, yeah, thanks. Uh, but what I want to gauge is, was this enough for you, or you wanted to know more from me before answering your questions? And with that, I think we can go to the Q&A. I think that's right in time. And I see already something here in the chat. I can just go through that. Stefania, I think you muted.
Yes, it's me writing in the chat that, so if you have any questions, I mean, the people in the audience can write in the chat, or they can raise their virtual hands, and Giorgio will reply to you.
Sure thing.
So we just leave a few minutes if someone is interested in writing or asking. Yeah, we have Vito Piccione. So Vito, if you want to ask the question, so unmute you.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
we can
sure.
hear you.
Yeah,
Okay.
hi. Thank you for the presentation. I think what I'm interested in would be like some additional insights into the industry,
Yeah,
specifically the video game industry, because
yeah,
I'm a fan of the whole video game
sure.
world, and I thought about getting into the industry on a bunch of different
Yeah.
aspects, but the one persistent thing I I find is that the industry is not really stable at the moment.
Mm,
So I was wondering if you could share
sure.
some insight from someone who's inside the industry, and maybe even if you have some experience that you've heard from colleagues more on the indie scene
Mm.
rather than the AAA, or even your own opinion on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Actually, thank you for the super question. Very clear. To all the audience, I think the Vito is already a video gamer, so I already presented two specific definitions. When we're talking about indie, we're talking about indie developers most of the time. So we're talking about the budget size, right? So we have games that can be very expensive in terms of total budget, and this is indeed the AAA that he refers to. They are names, acronyms made out of, let's say, thin air, but it's just that the important distinction of what Vito was hinting at is that the video industry is presenting in the last decade a huge growth compared to the previous one. We became important as a mainstream media as never before. So when you see the impact of video games compared to music and then to movies, it's actually generating way more revenue than them, even if we are perceived as a overall public a little bit still behind. You will still think that a sinker is way more impacting your growth, and I still do believe the same. When I was indeed younger, now I have video games that makes my reference, but before I was having music and movies that makes my reference. So the insight about like could say ongoing industry is indeed a terms of we are recovering from a fastest expansion ever in terms of market, and then therefore now it's a, let's say, we are reassessing what is actually the workforce needed to the production of sustainable video games, and this is across all the industry. For people that wants to embrace this industry, I think it's never been easier. At the same time, it's never been challenging. Because it never been that challenging, because indeed the level of preparation for even indies or, let's say, very junior role is to know your craft very well, and that's actually why it makes it easier for you to make sure that your passion that is about I think I see a lot of instrument in your background. It's really something that gets through, of course, your application of in the industry, let's say, job posting that you are referring to. Sound, especially, it is way more important today than way back. We have specific awards for games that have a soundtrack that is exceptional and stuff. So it's clearly part of the immersion of the video game. So therefore, the way you can communicate with music through a video game is important, if not fundamental. As my quick tip, as a sound, let's say, a designer or let's say sound testing, it's really important to actually connect with somebody of the industry. There are a lot of Italians, I guess you are Italian, that are already part of that industry because we have a huge past of music anyway in our country. And you will see that a lot of these people are really, really welcoming to actually provide you mentorship and stuff. So my first thing will be, if that's your passion, go ahead with that full steam, because you're going to find a lot of mentors out there that are, they don't have language barriers, so they could be Italian, but even professional from abroad that are actually really, really looking forward to have indeed providing mentorship to you, because clearly this is something that is a part of the industry in total, something that is really about the skills of a musician that of course they can give you the best.
Thank you.
Welcome. I see another question, Riccardo. I will just voice it if you don't mind, or if you want to. Actually, I can just read it. There are any other suggestions that can you provide to build a network? What I mean is that take part to the industry like GDC or Gamescom can be expensive as usual for a person with no name as me. Which kind of relation can I build as a nobody there? Yeah. I thank you for the question. I think it's really relevant, because it's indeed what I have to do at the day zero of my interest in video games. I was at Gamescom this August. It's really close where I do live. It's in Cologne, and I do live in Germany. And we had a lot of students, and the way they were so eager to know from a lot of industries personnel there, it was contagious in the positive way, of course. Since you are a nobody, as you are saying, but I don't believe that, It's just because you think you are, but you have a hidden package of gems in your chest that actually, us from this side, we cannot really understand unless you talk or unless you go engage to it. In terms of cost, I might see there is a problem. There are some way to get tickets for a student price, and actually I will double down on that. But I also understand that could be a little bit overwhelming in terms of budget to fly and then to be there and attend. What I can tell you that is there are ways that industry events can also be on a local basis. I think, for example, in Italy, there is the Milan Games Week. I know that, of course, there are less developer there than, more marketing and selling units, so to sell products. But one thing that I want to add on that is you can face a certain passion and then try to get into that industry for complementary ways. So from the sides of it. It could be because you work for a B2B business that works with digital media and advertising and does also game advertising. And therefore you get somebody closer to the video game industry. So I've heard this question multiple times, and how do I get a job in the video game industry? Well, it starts from getting, of course, a list of potential stakeholders you can engage with today or tomorrow in a sustainable way that doesn't drive you out of business. And if that doesn't fit, or it's already exhausted in terms of opportunities, then you can go, what are the other sides businesses that are actually in this specific industry that I can maybe send an email, engage with? Vito, for example, is a musician, or I guess is interesting in music. Music by itself is an industry, but video game industry related sound department, or let's say music, it's a face of that. So clearly there are ways to engage on different levels. For sure, there are ways that are explored, LinkedIn, connecting with the mentorship. And that's actually what I will insist first. Just sending a bunch of messages or emails explaining what you wanted to achieve, what you wanted to achieve for your growth. It will make somebody from the industry happy to reply to you. And this will be a starting point, or at least a clue for you to just get somewhere and not start from zero anymore. I don't know if I hope that already gives you another point of view rather than, of course, the direct one that actually the one that you mentioned. You're welcome, Ricardo.
Yeah, this is me, Giorgio.
Right.
This is you talked about feedback, which is a very interesting word, but for especially for Italian students and people, is not so easy to ask for feedback or give a feedback, as usually it's understood as a sort of judgment, as a raid. So we are very, very careful in asking for that. So how can we improve, and how can we face this defect in language and
I
behavior?
understand. It's actually something that struck me also when I struck me when I was here for the first years. The cultural shock between Germany and Italy is consistent across, let's say, all the other cultures. When you are just comparing them, France versus Italy, Spain versus France, whatever. So I see the point, and what actually made it easier here as a cultural aspect, but also as a different way of working, was to give feedback not for the person, but give feedback for what you wanted to achieve or you had to achieve. It could be a goal, right? So when we give feedback to something that you wanted to do and you could do only 50-30%, that's already changing the conversation rather than, oh, you did bad, to, oh, this thing didn't turn great. So this is actually something that as Italian I had to understand as well, because at the beginning I had to do everything perfect. And if it was not perfect, I was, oh my God, I'm gonna get fired, whatever, this kind of. And in Italy is of course very bad. I understand that. I had few, let's say, non-mentors in previous experiences of mine in Italy where I was like, oh, is this all my life working? And changing a little bit the perspective helped me a lot to understand sometimes there are just ways to interact the feedback in a different way. And I hope I learned from that. That when I give feedback, I actually try to focus on the objective part of the task and not towards the person. I would say that this is the easiest. And of course, you have to be very careful as well. To be a great feedback listener, you have to also be a great feedback giver. And you have to start really to understand what the context of the person and the way of communicating that. For sure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome. Pleasure. So somebody else, yes. Vlad, yeah, for sure. I can share with you what I do, and yes. Um, so in Ubisoft, I do work as a financial planning analyst. For somebody that is into business administration, it's fairly easy to understand. For somebody that maybe comes from other universities, departments, sorry, it's basically a way to work with the numbers, right, in specific tools, in a way that is fitting a strategy of the group, and that's to be reflected upon different scenarios. When they say working with numbers, is working with of course, figures that are related to the business. So, of course, in this case, in video games industry is about the quantity of video games sold, the quantity of users that engage with the product, the money that, of course, are generated by it, and the possible cost of that. So, the development of these video games. These are, let's say, overall. And the personal experience that brought me here today is, of course, starting with the skills, right? The skills that I had were focusing pretty much on financial planning, and finishing a business degree in Padova helped me to have the framework of rules, of course, of accounting rules that helps to understand the context of the work that I'm gonna do and that I did and that I do today. And the passion helped me to understand a little bit more from the product side, the success, the failure of certain items, given not only by objective measures like price and quantity, no, like you may assume, but also because people like it, people don't. So it's really about also the interest of video gamers and the customers out there towards different products. And to understand that a little bit better, what I do on a daily basis, or let's say on a cycle basis, is to ensure that our projections in terms of, let's say, product success and then cost forecasts are in line with what is indeed the strategy of each of our business unit leaders. Business unit could be a country, could be a video game, could be kind of anything in any other companies. So it's of course a game where a game, word of mouth, a job where you have to be very consistent with the stakeholder management. Stakeholder management is a skill that you don't learn at university. It's a skill that you learn only in a workplace. In any workplace you're going to be, you're going to work that you work in a team, and the team works with other teams, and the teams report to people, and these people most likely are, reporting to other people, up to the CEO. So your work matters for everybody in the ecosystem of your workplace. And my job specifically has a lot of, let's say, a meeting point, a lot of links with some other stakeholders around this industry for each specific company, of course. In that case, it could be the human resource department, it could be the sales department, and everybody has to have a little bit of a picture of what you're doing, of your new figures, to then build figures that consistently are understood by who is above you. In a nutshell, I don't know if Vlad that help you to understand what I do for a living. You're welcome. Then there is James. My question is, what advice would you give to someone who can't seem to find a career that intersects with their passion? How can someone find a way to balance these two things? It's a beautiful question. Thank you, James. I had different colleagues of mine, different friends of mine, that they found out that their passion was not consistent with any jobs, that at the end, while doing the job, found out how that passion could fit into a possible job. I'm going to explain myself. You don't have to find this day zero. It's just something makes it very easy. But you will understand if you join a workforce, let's say, or a company, or a team of research, if you continue in the university or whatever, that working is already a revelation for your young career. And it happened to me. Nobody explained to me how it does really work to work. And that could be already something that helps you to understand what you really like to work on. So there is no really needed to start this day zero and therefore day one you will have that. You can also start the other way around. We are going to work most likely for the rest of our lives, and therefore the biggest thing that I could tell you is there is no right or wrong. There is just a way that you like to explore your plan, your growth plan, and then you can change it. You can dissect it and then going back or going forward depending on what any given time you like and staying true with your code again. So to balance these two things at the end is you can try to not even have your career fitting with your job, but then maybe while doing this job you will understand what really interests you, and then say, okay, you know what, this job I like it, but then I might explore something else, and then you can do that. You are already having an experience while working into something that helps you to balance what you instead want to focus more next. If James, that's helped you a little bit, or in case if you want to do a follow-up, because I think this is really okay. You're welcome. It's a beautiful question, by the way. I don't know if I had an answer that satisfied you. If somebody has other question, oh, awesome. In the meanwhile, I will try to give a little bit more of context of um, we talked at the beginning about alumni, and it gives you also a perspective that you might feel like how I got into the alumni. Well, I got into the alumni because I indeed said it at the beginning. I wanted to become back somehow in my legacy, my alma mater, in the way that the university and the personnel took care of me, giving me something to work on in my workforce experience. And at the same time, I also wanted to go back to my university and say, I think we can work on something together. Therefore, that's why I applied when there was the possibility to candidate myself into the board of directors of my alumni association that I'm part of. Because they had this crazy idea to accept me into the board of directors for the Alumni Association. As you might know, the Alumni Association is a way that your university tried to build a bridge between a young professional and somebody that is more senior, and at the same ecosystem of the university itself, so students. So this, let's say, is what makes the network of people working out together. And I thought I had some ideas that could be beneficial to the Alumni Association, and apparently I was successful. Well, that's just the beginning, though, so I have to prove myself. But the idea is that that was not my plan 5 years ago when I discovered alumni. That was my plan after 2 years of being an alumni and not seeing things that I wanted to see, such as this thing that I didn't know was happening. So that's great about Arqus. And I think this is indeed something that I didn't know 5 years ago. And just because of rolling things is a snowball sometimes. You just let it hit you and then you just ride the snowball. Vito has a follow-up question, please.
Yeah, hi. I wanted to continue on the James question. Basically, I was wondering if I don't think you talked about any of this, but if you heard from friends or colleagues, uh, I'd be glad to hear something about regarding like career pivots or career shifts.
Mm.
Because I feel like even based on your previous answer, um, it feels like changing completely a career path might be something more easy than it actually feels to me or like to my friends at the
Yeah.
moment. And it's something really scary
Yeah.
to be conscious of, because okay, I can maybe I graduate next year, then I'll start working at something, and then one day I wake up and I just go, I hate this job, but I
Right.
just want to do something else. But it feels really really scary to not just to accept that, but how do I move forward after that point, because I'm starting not from zero, because I've
Yes.
got experience at that point in a
Yeah.
job that might prove beneficial in another career, but it's time spent, and it's time spent maybe in an industry where the age of
Yes.
candidates is valuable. So I was wondering if you had
It's
some.
a beautiful question, Vito. I thank you for this question because it exemplifies that our our thinking of work has changed. If you would ask this to my father today, he would most likely say, "Yeah, I didn't have that thought back then." It's a completely shift, economic shift, societal shift, environmental shift, and I totally see. I most likely am in the same shoes as yours. The way that I'm today in this industry is a result of choices that I made, and they have been proven so far good. But doesn't mean that this gives me the security of being in this industry forever. And that's actually the problem that we are facing overall in the industry with a lot of layoffs and a lot of, let's say, shrinking workforces across the IT industry as well, Amazon and Meta and all the big ones. You think like, come on, they're giants. Why they're still layoffing? Well, because changes of plan every time occurs when you never expect it. And this happens because of myriad reasons that we don't really need to investigate upon. The problem is how do you behave according to that? And that's indeed part of your question is um, let's say shift of pivots, as you actually correctly define them. They make us stronger, even if while doing them, we are looking like weaker because it looks like that we had a bad choice before, then now we have to change and pivot into something else that there is nothing to share with the previous experience. It means that something was off. From several interviews that I had along the years, also outside Ubisoft, I found out that this is less true than before, or it turned out that what I was my opinion was completely not the same one that every work employer has. Everybody knows that life is tough, and then there are many choices that we're doing because we have to, of course, at the end, make a living out of it. And we are really, really surprised of how many different, um, let's say, industry our current employee base in my studio are coming from. There are not that many people that are coming from the video game industry. They could come from the digital media industry. They could come from a production industry of, project managers. They come from all the industries, and artists especially. There is, of course, an element of the video game artist, but it could also become very different from what we thought about artists. And now they become more technical artists, more coding artists. So it's really, really heterogeneous. And this gives us the picture of today as the workforce has never been as, let's say, malleable as today. It is really something that the pivots, it doesn't really even interested any of the workforce employee that I met before. They really were not even asking, indeed, that was I was doing before, because what actually makes my skills stronger is actually indeed part of my education plus what I do in a workforce. And therefore, that what is the plus is actually the passion. Why do I apply here? Because imagine that we will not be talking about video games, but movies or I don't know, shoes. If I will be a great fashion fan, well, through my application process, I would then need to exemplify how crazy I am about fashion. And then good employer might indeed recognize that. If that's always happening, I cannot say that. I know by my experience that many applications that I sent, they have not even been looked at. but not because of you. It's just because this employer in specific was not looking at maybe a my profile, or maybe it was just not paying attention enough. And that's good, because then it was not what I wanted for. So it's also important that you don't really put yourself too down. Rejection, it's actually until you succeed. So statistically, you will have way more failure in your life, as I did. That's actually success. So yeah, just to make it a little bit more in perspective, but it's a beautiful question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have some few more minutes. So do you ever, Stefania, pick and choose somebody?
No, I don't. But if you
No.
want to start this new
This new trend, now everybody is
are-
going to leave the call, I guess.
Yeah. Well, maybe you can pick one from the audience, yes, and see.
Oi, oi, oi. I might just, since I think we just had only guys, I might ask, I see Laura, Irina, Veronica. Leaving the call immediately. Enrica, maybe I have a question. Carla. No, it's okay. All right, I might have then a question for you, Stefania, if it's valid too.
Yes, please.
So if, for example, there will be people that want to follow up, it will be possible for them to actually have the registration directly in the inbox of the university mail or something? Or
Yes, we are sharing this video recording in the Arqus website, as well as in the alumni one. So all the people who took part to this event today will have the possibility to see it again, and the ones who couldn't attend the meeting, they can
they
also,
could also see.
yeah.
Okay.
And maybe this is something that I'm asking you. Is it possible for anyone interested in you to contact you through LinkedIn, for example?
Yeah, sure.
Or okay.
Yes, please do.
I think this is also something that you can do. I mean, to create your own network. Maybe Giorgia can also help you with his own network.
Yes, please. This is to me the very little action I can do anytime. I indeed, I'm not very far away from where you are today, guys. I consider myself still young. Therefore, I'm digitally really responsive, maybe too much, I would say. But if I can do something very quick, I will do that. So it's about just putting you in the right conversation digitally. There will be no problem. I will be there.
Okay. So I think we can
Wrap it up.
wrap it up. And thank you very much for everyone who stayed until the end, and to Giorgia for this insightful speech, and hope to hear from you soon. Why not? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ciao.